And in static climbing, when you're actually, there is no such thing as static climbing because there's always some momentum when you're moving, right? You're climbing. But for simplicity's sake, there's jumping kinds of dynamic and popping, and you use this weightlessness sometimes to switch directions in space. So dynamic climbing is a very specific thing that is, more advanced. You can use dynamic techniques on easier routes, but I'll save that for the end. So starting with the points, what I do when I'm planning a move or planning a sequence is I look up and I identify the line, first of all. So we're looking at the line, we see where it goes roughly. So you know that when you get up there, it's going to go up and left or right. That's just a general thing. But when you're climbing, you have a bubble around you, kind of. And you don't want to be too focused on just the immediate. You want to see 2 handholds in advance. And the reason is, you're going to go up to 1 handhold, and then the next handhold, it could be straight up, to the left, or to the right. Okay? And that tells you where to look for footholds. Because if you have this hold, say for your right hand, and the next hold is over there, you're going to turn your body more like this, right? So you have to look at where the holds are, in relative to, let's say, your hips being the center of a quadrant. Then we look at vectors. Vectors are the contact vectors. That's the angle of the hold. If you have a flat hold, well, that's easy. You pull straight down. If it's a vertical hold, I see myself grabbing it like this. If it's diagonal, also, you just grab it in a perpendicular angle, right? Of course, you're going to be moving, and your body's going to change as you're moving past the hold, so you have to use your wrist, and if it's your foot, I see, the angle of the foot, and I use my heel to align in that perpendicular angle, right? If it's a friction hold on a lower angle, you want to keep your weight over your feet because your arms are going to fatigue. So you stand over your feet, you keep your heels low. What happens if you raise your heels? They slip, okay? So you have to have flexibility in your calves, okay? Then sometimes I see lines of force. So say I have a hold here, sometimes I push to get to that hold in a straight line, okay? So those are the vectors. And then the planes of the rock, well, that's, from slab. Here we are on a overhanging, so it goes slab, vertical, overhanging. And sometimes, like here, you see stalactites coming down, so you have multi-planes that your body has to move around. So your arms can move in certain axes. If you're moving across, you try to do it in straight lines. Because if you grab a hold like this and you're moving across, it's really hard. You don't have much power like this. But if you push with your legs so that you're like that, it's a much easier way. Otherwise, you have a little bit of a rotation. So straight lines, and with your legs, your hips are designed in a certain way that you can get a nice stem. And depending on the angle of the wall, I will turn my heels a little bit to accommodate the actual shape of the face. So don't just put your foot like this if the wall's like that. You can just turn your hips or your heels a little bit and get much better stance. Okay, so always look at the shape of the hold, how you're grabbing it, how you're standing it. And the first step, of course, is to look at the handholds, plan your moves. And so on an overhanging wall, you have this outer dimension. Your body wants to swing out. And the smooth climbers can transition with a lot less movement of their hips. You want to minimize extra movement. So you want to transition, push and pull between the hands and footholds so that it's a smooth transition. So when you have dynamic moves or sometimes swinging moves, that's where the arcs come in. And sometimes you use an arc, like say there's a hold, you're hanging on here and it's really far, you can't reach it statically, or maybe you're getting tired, you can actually throw your hand. You can swing it and throw it, and it helps carry your body over just by creating momentum. You can do the same thing with a foot. You can kick. Sometimes, you're on an overhang and you got to get your foot over there and you can't quite get it, and you just kind of have to get some motion. So you can use momentum in this art to your advantage. So that's pretty much the basics of climbing, and I imagine myself in kind of a three-dimensional sphere, kind of, and I can, so if there's like a hold out in space, I know I have to go up, over, and out. So my hips have to travel to a specific spot, that's the plumb line, underneath the hold. So when I see a hold over there, I know that I want to get my foot eventually underneath it so I can use it, right? And a lot of times you're using opposition between feet like this, the stem on a really overhanging, like a roof. We do what's called a bicycle technique. You push with one foot like this and the top of your toe with the other, and that takes a lot of weight off of your body underneath the overhang. You can also use toe hooks in the same way, like a hand and a toe together while you let go and reach. So those kind of techniques are really helpful. And if you're small and flexible, sometimes, especially if you have a hold that's kind of a sideways hold and a foot there, you can put your arm against your leg. I call that bracing. You just go, tick. As soon as you connect the distance between these 2 points like that, you have a point of stability. You can do it like that. You can, on an overhang, you could even use your head. There's all kinds of tricks you can use. So that's kind of a term that you won't hear anywhere because I made it up myself. But you see people using it. It's used, but it's an intuitive thing. And so all these ideas are here, but you have to make them here. You have to feel it for your own body. Because some people are flexible, some people are not. They're just really powerful and they keep their feet in front of them. They don't think too hard about trying to use all this technique. They just use their power. But I try to use as little energy as possible, just so that at the top of the climb, I'm not done. I can feel when I'm tired, and I hang straight arm, especially on an overhang. You want to come out a little bit so that your arm is straight. Depending on where your feet are, you'll be somewhat perpendicular. Well, actually, you'll hang down on this wall because it's not that steep. But just rest, shake out, and plan your moves, and breathe, so you don't get too tired. And that way you train yourself to get a certain amount of endurance so that you can rest as you climb. It's very important for psychological and for your forearms. So I think what I'll do now is climb, and whatever occurs to me, I'll explain. And for all of you who are close to my side, you can see where I'm going and which holds I'm using. And if there's a reach, you can see what I did to make it easier. A lot of times you can use undercling. So when I see an undercling hold, I know that, say if it's a right hand, I'm going to put my left foot and turn this way, hips to the wall, and then you can reach a lot further.